How the heck are everybody? I'm Fastidious. Welcome to my channel and welcome to a guide on the brand new hero, Falcia. Falcia is a super potent hybrid damage dealing fighter from the Northener faction. That means she does both normal damage and magic damage, the first hero in the game that can do that. She's a very exciting hero, however, she's coming on a very scary banner, let's say. It is a 250 pull guaranteed banner. So while it's guaranteed, it is certainly not free. 250 pulls is quite the steep price. This means if you're pulling on her 10x banner and by your 250th pull, you have not yet summoned her, well, that summon number 250, that's gonna be Falcia. So is she worth it? How good is she? What is the whole story with this hero? Let's get into it.
Fastidious.
Fastidious.
So, if you caught my spotlight I put out on Falcia just 2 days ago, I told you in 2 days, meaning now, that the full guide on her would be coming out, and I said it'd be quite exhaustive and quite comprehensive. Well, if you're watching it, it is out now, and let me tell you, it is going to be quite exhaustive and quite comprehensive. So let me quickly break down what we're going to accomplish in the video here today. We're going to start out with just an overview of the basics about her. So we're going to go over her aesthetics. I'm going to give you an introduction to the hero. Then we're going to talk base stats. I also have base stat comps, so base stat comparisons when it comes to other magic damage dealing fighters. Next, we're going to go over attack speeds. Attack speed is super duper important on her, the way her kit works. So we're going to go over the optimal attack speeds and thresholds to hit to get the right attack intervals. Then we'll break down her talents, her skills, finally her gear and artifacts. If you look behind me, you'll see this beautiful infographic made by Dolores, my community manager, so thank you very much, Dolores. Finally, we're actually going to take her into battle. We're going to start off with a damage test between her versus Valeriya. Valeriya was our most recent amazing fighter, new hero edition, so it seems like a nice comparison to make there. They are different champions, but we can at least set a baseline, and then we'll bring her in for a full guild boss run featuring an all Northener team. However, unlike in my spotlight video, which I told you guys was just kind of showing her off and doing a spotlight, this will be more of a realistic team that you could pull her this weekend and already get going next week. So we'll feature Isolde as a lord, keep the heroes a little more towards epics and basic stuff like that to really give you all a proper sense. Finally, we'll go over her awakenings. It's going to be very hard to get her awakened as this is a limited banner, you know. However, you never know. People might go crazy, might get super lucky, so we'll go over her awakenings. Then I'll give thoughts on her synergies, and to wrap it up, I'll give my final concluding thoughts on whether you should pull for her, what you should consider, and what I think of this hero. Let's get into it. So guys, as I said, Falcia is a fighter from the North Throne. She is a Northener hero. She is super unique in that she deals dual damage. So if we click here on her basic, this is not for her skills, but I'm just giving an overview. She deals both normal and magic damage. Overall, in terms of aesthetic, people keep telling me she looks like a character from The Witcher. I've never played or seen The Witcher, so if you have, let me know in the comments. But I'll tell you, she looks pretty dang cool. They're calling her the Tri-Blade Demon's Bane, and she does have tri-blades, trace blades. She has 3 blades. Pretty cool stuff. All in all, I think she looks pretty great. So let's talk base stats. I guess I'll pull them up in game and then I'll put up the little infographic I made. But you can see she's pretty solid, kind of typical of a legendary fighter. You might be thinking the attack looks slightly low. However, typically magic damage dealing fighters do have lower base attack, and then they have higher tankier stats, particularly when it comes to defense. So let me pull this up for you guys right now. You can see there are 3 other magic damage dealing fighters, 2 whom are in the game right now, and then there is Magda, who I sure hope is coming soon. She's a really cool cultist fighter that deals magic damage. But I think these 3 kind of set the baseline, right? So Falcia's coming in at 4,564 base attack. That's slightly lower than Synergies. Let's see. That is 72 points lower than Synergies, a nice chunk higher than Valkyria, and about, what is that, 256 points higher than Magda. So all in all, pretty solid attack for a magic-based damage dealer. Granted, it is a small population of these kind of heroes. When it comes to base HP, she's certainly the highest. And when it comes to base defense, she's certainly the lowest, but they're all similarly in kind of the same range. Seems like Valkyria and Magda are a bit tankier than Synergies and Falcia, but Falcia and Synergies have the bigger damage. At least you'll have to see on Magda. Anyway, those are the base stats. All in all, I'd say pretty strong. She'll be easy to build, but yeah, the attack might be slightly lower than you think, but it is because of that magic damage. She has dual damage, I guess, while the other ones have just straight up magic damage, so that is of note. Let's talk attack speeds. So move out of the way really quickly so you can see she is a 2.6 second interval hero, but the story definitely doesn't end there. She has something called specialized attack speed, which basically means the amount of additional attack speed you put on her to reduce her attack interval by 0.1 seconds is far lower than your typical hero. You may be familiar with this mechanic from Voroth. He is the same thing, and he also is a 2.6 second interval hero. So let me pull up a graphic for y'all right now. Basically, you're gonna see it takes way less attack speed to keep bringing her down, so you can get her really quick without too much attack speed burden when it comes to her build. So, and this will make perfect sense why this is so important when you see her kit very shortly. But basically, to bring her down to a 1.9 second interval, you need 61 additional attack speed. So that's on top of her 100 attack speed base that almost all heroes have. Then let's say to get her to 1.4 seconds, that'd be 147 additional attack speed. And then to the most important stuff, to a 1.2 second interval is gonna be 201 additional attack speed. 1.1 is 234, 1 is gonna be 273, 0.9, 321, and you can get her all the way down to 0.8 seconds, 4/5 of a second, for just 378 additional attack speed. As you see later, I'm going to suggest you don't build her that quick, but you can certainly get her in this like 0.9 to 1.1 second range, and it makes a huge difference once you see her kit. Let's talk about her kit. So I think it's best to start with her talent, as that very much informs the rest of all her skills and how they all operate. So just to read through it here, after performing basic attack 20 times, gains demon slaying stance, I'll explain that shortly, that lasts for 25 seconds. Additionally, gains specialized attack speed, what we just discussed. Quite simply provides a greater reduction in attack interval based on the attack speed attribute. You're getting more bang from your buck whenever you build attack speed on her. That's all that's saying. This is the key now that we understand that. That's important, but we get it. Let's talk about Demon Slaying Stance. What the heck is that? Well, it's pretty lethal. Basic attack will deal an extra 160% true damage. Shadow Slash, which is her ultimate, will deal 260% true damage 5 extra times. So that's 1300% extra true damage. If you're unfamiliar with what true damage is, basically it's damage that cannot crit but fully ignores defense. So it's good stuff. Basically, this Demon Slaying Stance is how she's going to get all of the S tier damage out of her kit. So the reason we were talking about attack speed and you want her going really fast is attack speed increases the rate at which you do specifically your basic attacks. So the faster she's doing basic attacks, the quicker and more frequently she's triggering Demon Slaying Stance, and then the more often she's doing big booming damage. So her talent, very, very important to her kit. On to her skills. So let's just start with her basic attack and work our way up from there. Already though, very, very cool. Like I said, she does hybrid damage. So on her basic attack, it is a single target attack, which is a double hitter. One hit is gonna do normal damage. The other hit is gonna do magic damage. I wanna quickly put a disclaimer. All the numbers you're gonna see here are post skill up, because obviously I fully skilled her up for this video. So just be mindful of that. But when skilled up, 95% normal damage and 95% magic damage to one enemy on that single target basic. Pretty wild. Deimos, granted he's an epic, but he has one of the best basic attacks, single target basics in the game, and that's a double hitter for 85% per hit. Now we're getting 95% hit, and the damage is split, normal and magic. Super great. Onto the passive, Demon Slayer's Might. It's almost like she's a Demon Slayer. They're really hammering this point home. When the hero's in a Demon Slaying Stance, ooh, look at that, increases damage by 50%. When hero is shielded, increases damage by 20%. So the second part there, when she's shielded, that has nothing to do with Demon Slaying Stance. So as long as you build like a good Northerner team with a Northern Lord, that could even be Dagna, you know, but an Isolde or King Hearts or maybe one day Elder, that would be fantastic. Or just bring a great shielding hero from the Northern faction ideally, so someone like Vortex. She's going to basically almost always have a 20% extra damage, at least in a lot of the content you might use her for. And then important to note, the Demon Slaying Stance is going to be even more potent, right? Damage is just up by 50%. So basically, this is not just 50% on top of what it normally would be. So let's say here it's 190%, now it's 240%. No, it's like a 1.5x multiplier. So she's going to do 1.5 times the amount of damage she normally would when she's in the Demon Slaying Stance. Finally, her last passive, Adrenaline Rush. When deployed, immediately enters Demon Slaying Stance. That lasts for 35 seconds. So as we saw from the talent, typically the Demon Slaying Stance lasts for 25. However, on initial deployment, when you've got her skilled up, this is just starting off right off the bat, 35 seconds in that deadly stance. Finally, onto the ultimate. Super good here, guys. Shadow Slash. Deals 160% normal damage 5 times and 160% magic damage 5 times to one enemy, right? So you're doing 800% normal damage, single target, 800% magic damage for a grand total of 1600% damage. That is a super strong single target, but keep in mind, on top of that, right, when she is in that demon slaying stance during Shadow Slash, which is the ultimate we're talking about, she's going to deal an extra 1300% true damage, 260% true damage 5 times. So if we add it all together, that is 2900% damage, nearly half of which is true damage. All in all, very cool skills, a very fun kit. Okay, we're back to Dolores' beautiful infographic. Thank you again, Dolores. Guys, if you want a copy of this for yourselves, it will be available on my Discord, The Fast and the Fastidious. All you gotta do is head over there and ask. Anyway, as you can see here, I basically broke down what I believe to be the most important stats. So we've got our priority stats, our secondary stats, then we have optimal gear sets and our optimal artifact. Taking you through it really quickly, then we'll head back to go over gearing and artifacts. When it comes to stats, guys, attack bonus is gonna be number 1. Attack is king, queen, prince, princess, and the frickin' dragon in this game. Attack is god, so you gotta be building that on her. The next thing might be interesting to you. I'm saying number 2 on her is attack speed, then crit rate. Of course, in a late game or end game build, you will want her crit capped or nearly there. However, a lot of people might be pulling on her because they really want her. They might be in the early game or the mid game or the beginning of the late game, and you might not be able to crit cap her right away. Attack speed is going to be essential. As you saw, that is going to be how you trigger her demon slaying stance. That's where the crazy damage comes from, and keep in mind the true damage cannot crit. So while you need crit on her and crit damage on her to get a maximized, fully min-max build, you know, I think for the beginning and the middle, you should still value attack speed at the utmost and go for those proper intervals we're going to discuss in a second. Then for secondary stats, I'm saying flat attack. Again, attack is god. Then we can go crit damage. Now you're getting into the more advanced builds. And finally, if you got room for it, a little rage regen won't hurt. That ultimate, the more time it's up, the more time you're getting bonkers damage. On to optimal gear sets. I'm trying to stay away from what I like to call premium sets. Those are your red and gold sets, so things like Soulbound Arcana, Ageless Wrath, Immortal Warrior, Warlord, we might as well say them all now, and Infernal Roar. However, you'll see I did call out Warlord because when it comes to your left side gear, the Warlord sets and your Immortal Warrior sets, these just add extra stats, right? So Immortal Warrior is 25% HP bonus and then 10% defense bonus, whereas Warlord is attack bonus and then of course 30 attack speed. However, with your right side gear sets, those have extra effects and extra damage multipliers and craziness like that. So I think in general in my guides, I will stay away from those. I will just verbally tell you what I do think are best, which is of course the premium sets are going to be best on a damage dealing hero in this game. However, for left side, I think if you can get Warlord, it's awesome. Any extra attack speed you can get on her can make the rest of your build easier and really get her flying. Then of course Calamity, we need that attack bonus. It goes hand in hand with the stats, right? Then we're going to go for our Whirlwind, keep that attack speed up. Then, you know, later on you can start focusing Annihilating Might. Once you've gotten all the other stats covered, then maybe that's how you get your crit damage. In terms of the right side stats, your accessory sets, I'll just start with the premium sets. I think Infernal Roar is going to be the best on this because even though she won't benefit from it during her ult, she's gonna have such a high attack speed and she's gonna be putting out so many basic attacks that 40% bonus damage is gonna be tremendous. I also think Soulbound Arcana is gonna be really strong, even though she has a very high skill cost on her ult, because she's so lightning quick, that ult comes back around quick. She's always getting rage regen attack. It comes way faster than you would think. And then I'd say Ageless Wrath just always works. That's always like a great extra option if you've got it. If you've got a great set of any of those would be your first choice. However, in terms of the normal sets, I do think Night Terror is going to be best on her if you can get some kind of a crit build. You could keep with how fast she'll be attacking. Again, she's all about attack speed. You can keep near 100% uptime on that 25% damage boost from whenever you hit your crits. Then I'll go for the Wisdom. She actually does cycle her ult quite quickly, like I said, so you can get that 35% boost for 10 seconds quite often. Finally, the Insight set, a nice way to get a little crit if you're struggling to get on your build, but also from those basic attacks, she's adding even a little extra true damage. 10 times her skill, so 600 basically, you'll have her maxed out. With how quickly she's attacking, that can be significant. To talk about artifacts, you will see I've only keyed in on one specifically in this infographic because I do think it's head and shoulders above the rest when it comes to her, and that is going to be the famous Crystal of Vileness, your COV, your COV. However, when we get to artifacts, I will shout out a few other options. Let's head back to the game now. If you caught my spotlight on her, this is actually the same build. I do think it is a very friendly build, right? You see, I'm not doing any full set on the right. We are doing Warlord on the left. However, that's just to help us get our stats. This is pretty like mid to late game gear. This is not exceptional gear. So let me just go through stats and walk you through it. So we went heavy on attack, nearly 17k attack, which is quite good given this 4.5 base attack. If we go over here to attack interval, you'll see I put a ton of attack on her at 258, but we still knocked off 1.5 seconds to get a very, very tiny 1.1 second interval. Unfortunately, the attack speed we settled on is right in between two intervals, so it is not properly min-max. I believe the other one is in the 230s, and then it's the low 270s. However, with the gear I have on this test server account, it's not that great. I could not get her one higher, one or slightly lower to prioritize other stats, so that's where we're rocking here. I do think 1.1 is solid. You probably don't want her much slower than this, but at this speed, she's still rapid enough that you're gonna get that demon slaying stance and get the big damage a ton of the time. We weren't able to crit cap her because, like I said, I don't have the best gear here, but again, maybe a more realistic build, 84% crit rate, and some pretty solid, not mind-blowing crit damage at 270%. No 19% extra rage regen, so she will be coming back up around a decent bit. Worth noting though, I have no Pantheon on the test server, so these are her actual full-blown stats she will have going on into battle. I'll click through the pieces here so you guys can see. So broken sets, we went for attack bonus. This one has all the subsets we're looking for, probably the best piece we've got on her in terms of accessories. Then another attack bonus, no crit damage here, but we did get that 19% rage regen. If we look here, we have one crit damage main piece. I think this is pretty typical for people in like the late mid game, early late game, so I think this is a nice build. You go for the 2 attack bonuses and the 1 crit damage. You can see pretty low attack bonus roll here. I do not love this piece at all, but we did get 62 attack speed from it and some healthy 21% crit rate. Onto our Warlord. If I had Calamity that could do this, I would, but my Calamity on this account is bad. My Warlord is bad. Farming on this account is a big issue. Maybe I'll make a video about it another day. Big attack bonus roll here, 26.5%. You'll love to see it. Pretty low crit rate at 14%, and some solid 22.5% crit damage. And then the only real reason I'm taking this weapon here from Warlord is because of that 51 attack speed. Otherwise, 11% crit, nothing special. It does help us, but nothing special. And then 17.5% attack bonus. All in all, I'd say a solid build, maybe like an early, late game build. But if I had her, when I get her this weekend, because spoiler alert, I'm pulling for her. I think she's awesome. You're about to see that. I will get a better build on her than this, no question. Let's talk artifacts, maybe the most interesting thing before we head into battle. Crystal of Violence is just going to be the best. Dealing damage is a 40% chance to summon 1 Shadow Guard with 150% of this hero's attributes. As you saw, pretty high attributes. This is going to last for 10 seconds, can be triggered every 20 seconds. Basically, it's going to have 50% uptime. With how frequently she's hitting, and you'd have to be pretty unlucky not to trigger her within 2 or 3 seconds every time that 10 seconds that we're not able to trigger her comes off. So this is kind of a no-brainer. It does a ton of damage. It really is best in slot for her, at least from my testing. With regard to other mythic artifacts, nothing really jumps off the screen at me. I will say if you're running a bleed team and you're using her in Guild Boss, Scarlet Hunt would be a great choice, but not everyone's going to be running a bleed team, so it would be a bit of presumption. However, if you got one, excellent choice. For Soul Drainer, I don't think it's a great choice at all. You know, it could work if you're thinking for something like Void Rift, you just want to touch extra tankiness, but she's not really going to operate as well that way as she would just putting something with huge damage on her and killing something before she has to tank it. Right along, no AoE, so no Eye of Sin. Void Gazer could work for like Guild Boss because of the big hitbox, but it's not going to be your best choice if you have other options. And then Flawless Blade for certain content could work, but it's not like you can hide her behind a tank or something or another fighter, given her 1 tile of range. All in all, I think Crystal of Violence is the no-brainer. You will see here I have a legendary artifact that I maxed out. I tested this to see how great an option it might be. Shout out to Mark, M-A-R-C-K. He was on my stream last night and said, hey, you want to try this out? It's a solid shout. It did not do nearly the damage Crystal of Violence did. That's why it did not make my infographic. However, a lot of people might not have Crystal of Violence or might not have mythic artifacts yet. This is quite a nice choice. So this is when it's maxed out. Each basic attack launched has a 15% chance of triggering another basic attack. Granted, this is full promo. However, even at 0 promo, it's still 10%. So this is only 5% higher. I thought maybe when I promoted it, it would go up to 20%. That was not the case. This doesn't lead to crazy damage. However, it could be the difference, especially if you're rerunning a stage a bunch. If you get good RNG, if you trigger a bunch of extra basic attacks, you might have your Demon Slayer stance coming up quicker, and that very well could be the difference. So I think this is a very good shout in terms of like a mid-game artifact for her. All right, let's talk actual gameplay, actual damage. Let's go compare Falcia to Valeriya. All right, folks, so I've set the stage for what I believe to be the most fair damage comparison between our two contendresses, Falcia versus Valeriya. So what's that gonna be? You can see we're in the guild boss, but we are not gonna treat this as a guild boss fight. We're in Nightmare 1, because this is something I know both of these girls can handle all by themselves. So they're gonna just take turns wailing on Ratan Bar, the dragon here, as though he's just a punching bag, a crash test dummy. He's nothing. He's literally just gonna be a punching bag, so we can just get a sense of how much damage they put out in X amount of time. So what is this gonna look like? We have two teams. We have a Northener team and we have a Nightmare team. However, only one unit from each is ever gonna touch the field. That's gonna be Falcia and Valeriya, obviously. Aylin is also here because we need some healer to make sure they survive until the end of the battle. Aylin's a great choice for two reasons. One, she's one of the two new heroes this weekend besides Falcia, and I'll just tell you right now, I am not gonna put a guide out on her this week, so this is a nice little way to feature her. And then two, she only heals. She doesn't add any special support mechanism. Like if I brought Vortex, then Falcia would be getting extra shielding. That would give her extra damage. That wouldn't be a fair comparison. But then you might be saying, why are there two extra Nightmare units, two extra Nightmare epics with Valeriya? Well, I want Valeriya to be able to get the full Lord bonus, the same way Falcia is going to get the full Lord bonus from Isolde. To do that, we need to have deployed 4 Nightmare units. So these guys will touch the floor for 1 second, immediately be revoked. You might be thinking, that puts Falcia at a disadvantage. Of course it does. Falcia naturally is at a disadvantage for these kind of fights because she's in the Northener faction. Until a Lord like Elder arrives that allows her to do increased damage output, she's always going to be at a disadvantage because she's a Northener and not a Nightmare unit or an Infernal unit or something like that. So without further ado, right now Falcia is wearing all of her gear. She'll go into the battle. Aylin will be there to heal her on up. Also, Aylin's artifact is the Elysian Folios, which I chose super random just because it's a healing artifact and does nothing else besides heal. There's no support thing like Orb of Euphoria or something. We'll do that. I'll show you the little setup. We'll fast forward to the end and see what kind of output she did. Then we will fast forward again. You'll see me move the gear from Falcia to Valeriya. We'll run it back and we'll compare the numbers. Let's hop into the fight. So this is gonna be pretty simple, right? We go in, we take Falcia, and we're gonna put her down right here. We're gonna put Aylin down over here so she's not in view, blocking your view of Falcia, but she's still in range to heal. And now we watch. I'm not going to pay attention at all to the shields on the guild boss. These girls will handle them like they're nothing. They don't need any help with that. We don't have to worry about timing their ults with the shields, stuff like that. That's why I'm choosing Nightmare 1. Whenever the ults are up, I will trigger them, and that's it. I'll never trigger Aylin. It doesn't matter. In this fight, I won't deploy anyone else. And then, of course, with Valeriya, I will only put people down to get her bonus, and then the rest of the fight will look just like this. So I'm going to fast forward to the end. We'll check in on the damage, and we'll see how she does. Also, it's worth noting, guys, if you see this red swirling thing around Falcia, that means she's currently in her demon slaying stance. So just something of note if you want to keep an eye out for it. All right, there you have it. That is the production we're going to see out of Falcia. It's interesting to see just like a one-on-one dragon versus single hero, but I kind of like it. 2,818 blood. You can see, yeah, this is from the little tests I've done today. Let's check the stats. She put up a healthy 25.5 million damage. So let's fast forward through this now. Let's move all of her gear straight on to Valeriya and do the same thing all over again. Into battle, and like I said, we are going to just drop those Nightmare units besides Valeriya and pick them up right away. That is just to make sure she gets her bonus. So you can see plus 10%, now plus 20%. Baron will make an even plus 35, even 35. Let's do Aylin in exactly the same spot. I will do the same thing where I just trigger her ults as they come up, just like we did with Falcia, and we'll fast forward to the end and see what the damage looks like. All right, getting to the very end of the fight, Valeriya actually died. There were 8 seconds left though, so we'll call it a wash. I will say Valeriya was at a slight disadvantage, I guess, because Aelin kept healing her, and Valeriya really lives in that sweet spot at like 30% health. However, she did quite well, as you can see, certainly better than Falcia did, and that kind of is just on the back of being on this wild nightmare comp. So she did 33 million, so a little more than a fifth better between so about 8 million. She did about 33.5 million. Falcia did about 25.5 million, so 8 million more, a little over than 33% better than what Falcia did. So impressive stuff. But then again, Valeriya is a total star. I checked on the global leaderboards, and on the 3rd highest on the record global leaderboard for Guild Boss 4, she was the 4th highest damage dealer on the number 3 in the world's team. He's the highest damage for anyone running a nightmare team in the whole world, and she was the number 2 nightmare hitter. So Falcia is a little bit a woman without a home, I think, when it comes to like this endgame meta. However, as you're about to see in 1 second, she's going to fit very nicely into most normal like mid-game to early late game comps. And when it comes to Guild Boss, I do think though she's not going to be she can be super serviceable to plug into your lineup. Like she could still fit into an endgame lineup, but she won't be a superstar the way someone like Valeriya is because of her faction. However, in Void Rift, and I might as well say this now, you might be wondering why I haven't mentioned Void Rift. I think Void Rift and then Infernal Codex, when that comes, or Eternal Codex, what is it called? I can't even remember. Immortal Codex. When those arrive, that's where she'll be like triple S tier. However, I'll just show you. It's the test server. They're still saying I can't fight higher levels of Void Rift until I've beaten the other ones. And I'm just gonna tell you right now, I'm not gonna beat Void Rift twice a week, once on my account and once on the test server. So let me set up my Northern faction team for Guild Boss, and let's get into that. Now let's head into Nightmare 3 and check out our all Northerner team. There are 2 exceptions here in Eluin and Dolores, but they're not really there for anything besides helping everyone else out. So our Lord here is going to be Isolde. Then we've got Falcia, obviously. We've got, for some reason, Vortex, and I should mention now, Mari are at Awakened 5. I did not do that. It was the previous owner of this test server account. They do not need to be A5 for anything I'm about to do right now, but I just want to mention they are. Dolores is A5, and I did that. It's great to have your Dolores A5. I'm a big proponent of that. I know A1 is the most important, but our A5 is pretty darn awesome as well. Then we got Vortex. He's there for heals, but also some nice synergy, right, with Falcia getting extra shields, which means that whenever she's shielded, 20% extra damage. Then we've got Estrid, who you don't see enough. She'll be there for a little damage and maybe to get some defense reduction out. And finally, Voroth. Someone shout out in the last video I did that Voroth for some reason was 6 stars, but only level 60. Just like actually Isolde is right now. Let me remedy that. It's such a drag upgrading these things in the test server. Sometimes I forget to click that one last button. But there you go. Everyone's maxed out now. Voroth is actually in the same build you saw him in last time. Mari is in a straight up spammer build. And then Eluin and Dolores are there just to help everyone else out, boost our output, boost our damage. I'll show everyone's build very quickly at the end, but right now, let's just wrap this thing up and let's actually get a proper fight in. So, as always, I'll talk you through the beginning, and then we will fast forward to the end because these guild boss fights are very, very long, lengthy, if you will. So, we'll get Falcia down right here, just so we get a good view of her. We can put, oh, actually, I have Estrid in a Void Gazer, so let's put her over there. Then we can put Mr. Oh my God. Oh no, she put her Crystal Vineless guy there, so we can't do that. So we'll go like this. Isolde can go here. We'll wait for a second on Voroth. There's Mari just for our debuffs, our vulnerabilities. It really does not matter where Eluin is, and I'll just prove the point by shoving her over there. Dolores goes in the Dolores spot. The second that comatose spirit goes away, we will place Voroth, and we will be off to the races. I will hold my triggers and treat this like a normal fight now. Oh my God, please get down. There we go. All right, let's throw this thing on 2x. So we'll hold out for the shields and stuff like that. We'll do our best to cycle everything else. And I'm hoping to see a pretty big number. I think this team's gonna do pretty well. And a much more realistic team than last time, right? I actually built out close to a full team, and then on top of that, I'm not bringing Elder, who's a legendary lord who's not even in the game yet. So this is gonna be a proper guide, not just let's just trigger everything, I suppose. Proper guide, not just a spotlight, right? All right, so we can always put out Voroth to make sure we have shields up. I'm gonna start fast forwarding already. You guys kind of know the gist, and we're gonna let this thing rock and roll. Also, I realized I just triggered Mari's ult right there, guys. That was a mistake, obviously. Did not need to do that at all. All right, guys, tail end of the fight already. As you can see, not mind-blowing blood at all. However, we did break that 6,500 blood mark, so it's pretty solid. I'm excited to see how well Falcia put up the pace. So she got a touch of an ult out at the end there. All in all, I think we did about as good as this team was going to do. The gear is not great on this account, but you can see 7,200 blood. It's not bad at all. Uploading our fight data, thank you so much. And let's see how we did. So you can see she completely outpaces everyone else at 31 million. Pretty similar to what she did yesterday with Elder, or 2 days ago, I suppose. But you can see she puts up naturally a ton of damage. That being said, she is hindered by her faction. I wish I could show her off to you guys in the Void Rift. I am not going to complain, but I will make a comment. Hey, could you just unlock Hard and Nightmare Void Rift for me so I can demonstrate it in content? But all in all, I think quite a strong showing. You can see Estrid and Vorath doing all right as well. Mari did a great job keeping those vulnerabilities up. But there you have it. Let's quickly show off those builds for anyone that wants. I'm going to try this as fast as possible, and I'm not going to show every piece. I'll just click. Let's go into our teams here. Let's start with the non-Northerners. Here is Dolores. I'll just show you that. On to Elowen. Where are you, honey? There she is. Dolores is wearing Ancestral Teachings. Elowen is, of course, wearing Orb of Euphoria. Did not matter. No one was in a range. Everyone else is Northerners now, so we can go and do that much easier. Falcia is what you know already. We didn't bring Nocturne. Let's go to Estrid. She was in that Void Gazer. Here's her gear. There you go. Now we have Vorath, who actually was at level 60 this time. There you are. Most people are in broken sets, if not everyone, when it comes to accessories. Like I said, the gear. He is in his signature. So that's fun to see. That will be available through the event. Here we've got, I did North's Glory instead of Orb of Euphoria. Maybe Orb of Euphoria would have been better on Vortex, but I just wanted to max out the time we had, the uptime on our shields. There you can see, it's really not, none of these builds are so mind-blowing. There is our Vortex, and finally, Mari, she is in Nightmare Samsara, great choice for her. All these guys are max skills, and you can see we just went for lightning quick, 1 second interval, and then a ton of rage regen. Not that it mattered, but I just built her the way I would build a Mari for all content. Rage regen's not gonna matter since she's not using her ult on the guild boss, except for when I accidentally triggered it. There you go, guys, a tanky build on a soldier. She was there literally just to be there. And she is in, it doesn't matter, but a goddess grace. So to wrap things up, while we're talking about the Northerners, let me give my final thoughts on her synergies. She works extremely well with Vortex. I think that is the best hero to pair with her. That's going to maximize the uptime on her shields. And moreover, to keep uptime on her shields, you really truly are going to want to have some Lord, even if it's Dagna. Because the Lords in the Northerner faction, let's just show Dagna now, their Lord skill, they will frequently put up shields on the team. You can see periodically they grant those to faction allies. So it's just really going to help. That 20% bonus damage goes a long way. So I'd say that would be her chief synergy. And then any hero that provides shields like Vortex, or of course, when Gwendolyn comes, this will be a fantastic hero to pair with Falcia, I should say, and also in general. But here is Falcia. My concluding thoughts, I'm absolutely pulling for her. I'm very sorry that I couldn't demo her in the content that I really foresee her being a superstar in. But that being said, she probably could slide right into my Nightmare 3 and Nightmare 4 Guild Boss teams because I don't have something perfectly meta. Granted, if I was to pull a Pyros or something like that, then maybe I'd have to end up running a full Infernal team and she could fit her way out. But who knows, you know, maybe if I did Infernal and Piercer, but you didn't have a third Piercer, you just did like Hex and Silas or something, she could easily be an extra DPS spot on the floor. Depends, you only have so many spots for Guild Boss within Dolores range. There's only 3 melee spots. So it depends who else you have on your account, but she's tremendously strong. And I do think particularly for endgame content like Void Rift and Immortal Codex, she is going to be a superstar. So final thing is, if you want her, go for her. She is not going to be completely game breaking, at least not as I envision yet, but she's certainly going to be pretty gosh darn good. Guys, this has been a really hard, difficult to film. This has been a ton of work. I've been going at this for 4 hours straight now. So if you appreciate it, please let me know. I've been Fastidious. Give it a like, give it a comment, share it with your mother. I'll see you in the next one.
Fastidious.